The scythe dates back to the Roman era and endured into the present century as the supreme implement for cutting corn or hay. A mower needed a good sense of balance and rhythm, and men like 83-year-old Hughie Kilpatrick, who worked a scythe all day in earlier times, never rushed, but maintained a steady pace. Hughie in his prime could have cut an acre in a day. One drawback the scythe had was that it needed constant sharpening. The task of cutting a field of corn would usually have taken 3 people. The job being done by Tony is called poling. This was to ensure that the corn fell the right way. This made it easier to cut and also left the corn lying the same way for the men tying the sheaves. Tony's job would usually have been done by a child, and the tying of the corn sheaves was usually woman's work.
Hey, you're telling me that a good man would have mowed an acre in a day?
Oh, without any trouble.
You'd have been going right, would you not?
Oh, no, nice. And you'd have mowed an acre of corn and you'd have mowed an acre of grass. Corn not so hard to mow.
What length of a day would that have been?
Oh, well, from 9 o'clock in the morning maybe till 7 at night.
How many breaks would you have got?
Oh, you'd have got your dinner and tea in the evening. Cold.
Just a couple of meal breaks?
No,
There were no 10 o'clock tea? Or...
Well, it could have been possible. You could have had a cup of tea at 10 o'clock. Then your dinner in the evening. Oh, I didn't mow at an acre cut easy at 7 o'clock.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you think you'll get her finished now before dark?
Oh, I'd say that. Oh, aye. Definitely.
You better get back to work again then.
Aye,
Thanks very much.
With more power coming to the farms in the form of tractors, the reaping machine got bigger and capable of cutting a much larger sward. Hughie and his brother Joey, using this model coupled to the TE20, would have been able to cut an acre every hour, about 8 times more than the scythe man could have cut. They would also have needed 8 or 10 people tying behind them. As more and more farm machinery like this began to appear on farms around the country, farm labourers became less and less in demand. Farmers, however, were well aware of the hazards of bad weather and recognised the real advantages of these quicker methods. A week later at Balachi, Hubert and his uncle Joey are finishing off the building of a corn hut. The corn, which has been standing in stooks, is now fairly dry and almost ready for thrashing. During the 1950s, this corn would have been built into a stack and perhaps left in the field until the following spring. Hubert has no intention of leaving it that long, and with a good long-range weather forecast, Hubert is quite confident that this corn will not get wet within the next week.
Put a rope on it. You were saying the crews at basically.
Oh, cool. It's around here.
Especially around here, I don't know where in all parts of the country it's bad as us or not, because you see them out planting over there. Loving the crew.
And they would eat a lot of the corn.
Aye, well, they do a fair bit of it now, and well, they would tear holes in the hut, you see, and then the water would run on, you know. Break the old seal on it.
Do you have any boy with rats and mice eating?
Very little. Well, you would if it was set, sitting long enough.
You're not going to be sitting that long.
No, I know it long enough sitting for the rats to get at it.
Some of the boys would have built a stack after this.
You would, aye.
I've seen as you have your own thresher, you're not going to...
I'll not bother stacking it.
Sitting waiting on a thresher.
No. The stacks, well, there's wouldn't be many stacking it now, and away in earlier times, the people wouldn't have as much housing as they have now to haul the stuff. There's probably about a housing to haul straw and corn and stuff.
Well, here, thanks very much to you and Joey, so we'll see you in about a week's time.
Okay, Joe.
You're going to get the thresher out then?
Well, you shouting if we're ready.
All right.
Right.
For the Balachi vintage men, the operation of removing the grain from the sheaf requires a lot more manpower and is not so simple a task as Billy's operation. Hubert brings out his thrashing mill for the thrashing of the oats. In the 1950s, Someone in every town land would have owned a thrasher like this one, and he would have been busy from October until the following spring. This mill cost £610 when it was bought from Boyd's of Ballymoney in 1952. This was a lot of money in those days, the price of 2 new cars. The 10-strong thrashing team at Balachi are by this time through half of the field of huts. Hubert's corn has seen a good summer and a fine dry autumn, and so the Balachi farmer is well pleased with the way his corn is thrashing. What are the thoughts of these two men? Joe Lowry, the original owner of the thrasher, says that those were the happiest days of his life. Joe remembers when there was great competition to see who could thrash the greatest number of stacks in a day. To quote Joe, 8 stacks was a powerful day's work. Thrash 10 and you would have been the talk of the country. The feeder, whilst his job was less back-breaking than many, undoubtedly had the most dangerous job around the mill. For as he swung the sheaves backwards and forwards, his mind had to be focused at all times. To merely touch the feeder drum with the bare hand meant serious injury, and, for thrasher men, loss of a limb was not uncommon. This is why men feeding the thrasher swapped jobs every so often, as the monotony of the same job all day could result in a fatal lapse of concentration. The corn huts are being brought to the forkers by the buck rake, another implement suited to the Ferguson in the early 50s. The most important man around the mill always seemed to be the man tending and sewing the bags. Perhaps this was because the job was usually done by the mill owner himself. Even the chaff had its value. Some farmers spread it onto their middens to enrich the manure, although in other parts it was burned. Happily, Hubert's thrasher, his tractors and all other pieces of vintage machinery which we have seen in this film are safe in the hands of dedicated vintage enthusiasts.